So let's start. The others will join us as they come. So we can start with the video. They did it already. Okay. Okay then. So welcome all of you, and I'm glad you're here because this is one of the discussions. But as you know that the meeting, the climate change is also having quite some other activities at the moment. So sometimes you'll find that maybe we're few, but people will walk in as we start. And I just want to welcome you all. And hope that we can be able to capture a lot. And also we want to thank our panelists for agreeing to come over to talk to us. And I just want to say that this is a very important discussion. And this is mainly because the mobile pastoralism is often the only viable food production system in valuable environments such as the grassland and rangelands where most of you also come and are working in. Yet it has also been considered as unproductive, environmentally damaging, leading to advanced policies that have historically undermined and limited its capacity to adapt. Grasslands and rangelands are also some of the most important, often under-recognized carbon sinks, yet threatened through increasing drought, degradation, and desertification, and in addition to climate change. In all lights of our global climate crisis, it is time to recognize and reclaim the dynamic potential of pastoralism to adapt to and restore their environments. Success stories are going to be told today from the ILC members. And they will show how land use and conservation practices of pastoralism can lead to livelihoods, resilience, and food security, while contributing to landscapes environmental restoration in viable environmental and livelihood resilience. Securing pastoralism, land tenure, building capacity for local action, and improving resource governance, enabling and leveraging the potential pastoralism for adaptation and restoration in the face of growing climate and socio-economic stressors. In this side event, we will hear quite a diverse case studies from different pastoral contexts, and also raise awareness on the importance of tenure security as an enabling condition for community-based restoration initiative. Coming from the pastoralist community myself, I think I'm very keen to listen to that, and also working a lot with the pastoralist indigenous communities and other minorities in Africa. I find this is a very, very important a discussion and also presentation. And so I really would like to welcome you very much, and really want to say thank you to ILC for arranging that. We have quite some, we have presenters today. Our presenters are Kulipa Akinatova, pasture conservation in that word of your country is always very difficult to pronounce. Kyrgyzstan. And Edward Porokwa from Tanzania, and he works for the Pingos. I'll introduce more when I give you to speak. From Tanzania, and as a pastoralist, I think all his life he's been on pastoralism, and he can tell the story better. Pablo Freire from the pastoral perspective from the Gran Chacos of Argentina, that's what you say. That's very wonderful to see and hear whether we have pastoralists down there. And then Hanie Morgan from Iran, and she's from Senesta, where we have had that presentation and the lives of the Iranian indigenous people out there. So this is going to be really great to listen to that. And we'll later on listen to Joanna here, who will be telling us about the UN decade on the ecosystem restoration. And to just know about how the ecosystem restoration is working and who are the members. I think two of us are here. You'll hear about it later on. And then later on, we'll also have the one who will close our meeting will be Joe Puri from IFAD, and Dr. Joe Puri is Associate Vice President of IFAD. So later on we'll hear from her when we are closing the meeting. And as I said, we are expecting to have more people to come, but I will straight away go to the first presenter from Kyrgyzstan, I think. You'll just have to keep on forgiving me for mispronouncing that name. And Ms. Kulipa is director of the Rural Development Fund. She is also a manager of ILC Asia platform on ecosystem restoration. She's one of the Pakistan most well-known experts on traditional knowledge and has contributed a lot of work, a lot of discussion, and a lot of awareness creation on the work and also on traditional knowledge. So please, every panelist, you have 7 minutes. Okay. But if you could do 6, I would really appreciate so that we have time to move on. Okay.
Thank you for thank you so much for introduction me. First of all, I would like to say about my country. It's Kyrgyzstan. It's located in Central Asia. It's an honor to speak to such as audience. Thank you very much for choosing us. I will try keep it short and simple. Later you can download this presentation. Please, second slide. Oh, thank you, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Kyrgyzstan is, I will notice it about my country. It's a Pashto country. Pashtos of Kyrgyzstan occupy a significant part of country's territory. It's over 9 million hectares. It's very rich of biodiversity, I mean flora and fauna and other natural resources. These pastures areas are essential for traditional pastoralism, which plays a vital role in the economy and culture of local communities. In order to preserve these pastures, to ensure secure ownership of pasture land, the concept of pasture conservation is introduced. It's the protection and sustainable management of rangeland. Methods such as rotational grazing and proper land use planning to prevent overgrazing and degradation, and to balance livestock need with conservation of natural resources. Now I would like to share with you about our challenge. Pastoral communities face a number of challenges that significantly affect their lifestyle and livelihoods. They are land degradation and desertification. Overgrazing leads to loss of vegetation cover. Soil erosion, reduced productivity of rangelands, and climate change exacerbates these problems. There are serious problems in obtaining sufficient fodder for the livestock. Threats to traditional land tenure system. Mainly livestock keepers have long-standing traditional land tenure systems that govern their access and rights to grazing land. However, these systems are increasingly threatened by factors such as population growth and other competing land uses, mining and tourism and industry. Pasture conservation definition. Conservation grazing play a critical role in sustainable land management, maintaining a balance between livestock production and the conservation of biodiversity and ecosystem services. And we have the number of benefits of pasture conservation. Increase resilience to climate change. For example, rotational grazing. To Kyrgyz compared unprovided or blackened soil from overgrazing. To the human soul, and said to my soul is tired, like a pasture on which cattle have been grazed 3 times without rest. timely practices would help mitigate their negative effects of drought, extreme temperatures, and changing precipitation patterns, ensuring the availability of pasture resources for livestock even under difficult climatic conditions, enhance water retention and soil fertility. This is in turn enhance soil fertility and nutrient cycling, leading to healthier grassland and improved productivity in terms of forage availability for livestock. Preservation of traditional knowledge, I mean Koga's traditional biological and cultural heritage, and cultural practices. Pasture conservation serves as a means to preserve the traditional knowledge and cultural practices of pastoral communities. These practices have often been refined over generations and deeply intertwined with the sustainable management of grazing lands. By recognizing and promoting pasture conservation, we've safeguarded the transmission of traditional wisdom, ensuring the continuation of cultural heritage and the unique relationship between pastoralists. I would like to share with you this successful case. This family has set an example to many in the region, in the country. Instead of spontaneous collection of wild herbs, which was the family's income, they are growing medicinal herb in their plot of land parcel, and they also reduce the number of livestock grazing on pasture. As a result, harvesting chamomile gave 5 and 6 times more income compared to potatoes, which they previously grew on the same plot of land. Thus, preserving the local ecosystem in initiating local interesting grain startups for young farmers, for young villagers. In Kyrgyzstan, about policy and advocacy. In Kyrgyzstan, there is advocacy for stronger legal frameworks to protect pastoral land tenure. This the aim to ensure equitable decision-making process and prevent land encroachment. These efforts empower pastoral communities, preserve their traditional practices, and promote sustainable pastoralism for the benefit of both communities and ecosystem. And I would like to highlight. Так, что-то он не работает. It doesn't work, да? Yet. From another direction. Okay. Local communities play a vital role in pasture conservation. By utilizing their understanding of the local ecological context, communities can make informed decisions about grazing patterns and land management. This collaboration fosters social cohesion, empowers communities, and ensures the long-term sustainability of grazing resources and livelihoods.
If you could summarize.
And my conclusion. My conclusion. Our losing for now, the urgent need for action and in sustainability pasture conservation is evident. Stakeholders, governments, and communities must collaborate immediately to address land degradation, biodiversity loss, and climate change impact. It's collective responsibility to protect and sustainably manage pasture land for the well-being of ecosystem livelihoods. Since we continue to conduct traditional pasture use and livestock farming according to the method of our ancestors, the nomadic Kyrgyz pastures have been and remain our home, a source of wealth and life. This is the biocultural heritage of our people. It's more than just land for grazing, renting and transforming into another type of land for sale. It's a source of spirituality and well-being of the people, which need to protection, restoration and careful care. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you brought up some quite good points also on issues of traditional knowledge and working with the communities and having the community at the forefront in terms of looking at that. So I want to thank you very much. So I'll give to Porokwa. Edward is a lawyer and an advocate in Tanzania. He's currently the executive director of Pingos Forum, which is quite an organization that is focusing a lot on issues of pastoralism, indigenous people out there who are mainly nomadic pastoralists. It's an umbrella organization for the pastoralists, as I said, and he has over 20 years experience in working with indigenous peoples organizations in the area, and also not only in pastoralism, but also in human rights. And Porokwa, I'll give you, and I would urge you to really keep to the 7 minutes there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I've been introduced, I'm from Tanzania. Tanzania is one of the countries in East Africa, and which is the third country in Africa in number of livestock in all over the Africa. But the population of the pastoralists is not directly reflected in the national statistics, but it is estimated that more than 10% of the people of Tanzania are practicing pastoralism, which is about 5 million people, and is practiced all over the country in all 26 regions of the country except in Zanzibar. The historical background of pastoralism in Tanzania has very much been affected by the modern concept of land ownership from the colonial time, which are more focusing on individualization, titling and registration of land to people, while the pastoralists and indigenous people own the land commonly in community as community land, as commons. So even the land security of pastoralists have been a very big issue since the colonial time to present. But also, given that they are not the majority of the population, all the other policies related to land and natural resources have only been focusing on the other population of the country, which is cultivation or farming and fishing and other livelihoods that are practiced by the majority of Tanzania. So if you look at the total number of pastoralists versus the rest of the country, they are the minority. That and of course they are not only affected by the land security that was created by the colonialist, but there have always been negativity about the livelihood, which has resulted into taking much of the Maasai or indigenous people pastoralist territories into conservation areas. Currently, Tanzania has 40% of its land as conservation areas, and about 80% of that land was originally the land that was owned by the pastoralist, which has so much affected the mobility of the pastoralists, because now they cannot use the protected areas because they're exclusive for that purpose. The other thing is that due to the same negative perception about the livelihood, their economic contribution to the nation has not been reflected in any of the country. Like, we don't export any meat from outside because we have sufficient livestock that can save the country, but also exporting to different other neighboring countries. That is not really being reflected. Now, trying to relate the same subject with the current climate discussion globally, there have been a lot of focus on forest as a source of conservation of livelihood, of carbon sink, but rangeland is not really one of the areas that is taken very seriously. And looking at the impact of climate change as well, you can notice that the pastoralists are more affected immediately than other community, because they own the land communally. They need mobility to sustain their livelihood, but also they are living in semi-arid areas, which are not necessarily so much with heavy rain. So if you look at all this, you can see that pastoralism has been suffering both due to climate change, but also due to policies and actions that are taking place to mitigate climate change, forcing them to live a different livelihood and making their land more insecure and making it difficult for them to continue to exist. And for those who have been following up on what is happening in Tanzania, for example, they are subjects of evictions. They are evicted every day. There are serious violation of human rights, and they are continuously being affected by the climate that is seriously changing in the areas. But also the indigenous knowledge is not really recognized. The assumption of the policymakers and governments is that they know more than the indigenous people, while in fact indigenous people have a lot to teach about the success that is happening in their areas and how they manage the biodiversity, the mobility aspect, the kind of livestock that they keep, how they conserve the grassland, how they even influence existence of other animal or biodiversity, including wildlife. Just like how in many of the areas where the pastoralists have been evicted, you find the wildlife following them. You establish a conservation area and put the indigenous people or pastoralists away from that conservation area, and the wildlife follow them. So you can see definitely the contribution of the pastoralist into biodiversity, into improving the resilient harsh conditions in the areas, but also in conserving the rangeland that are existing in the area. And I have mentioned a few challenges, but also there are a lot of things that I think are very important to take into account when we need to address these issues. We need to rethink about the indigenous knowledge by securing the commons, by ensuring that the land use plans that are developed by the governments take into account the mobility of pastoralists, the indigenous knowledge, and of course the resilience of the ecosystem as well as the livelihood of the indigenous people. We need to now move from only thinking that the forest is the one that is bringing the carbon sink. We need to look at the rangeland, how much it contributes into preserving environment, in absorbing the carbon, and of course in addressing the issues. In this scope, for example, one of the big issues is the issue of loss and damage, which is a very important issue, and everywhere you go to any side event, you can see the concept of loss and damage being discussed. But is rangeland or pastoralism part of that discussion? is there any finance that is coming to the pastoralists in relation to loss of and damage? Because as we speak, they are the most affected, as I said earlier, and they get affected immediately, and they are contributing more than anybody in conserving the nature, in conserving the rangeland, which is a very, when you talk of the rangeland, for example, in East Africa, we are talking of a vast area. We are talking of about 30% of Kenya, Tanzania, and other countries, for example, in East Africa. So we are talking of that big landmass. And that landmass has always been depending on the way we live with nature, on the way we conserve, on the way we move to allow the nature to rejuvenate, and on the way it is absorbing the impact of what people are doing here. But how much finance is going into supporting the indigenous people? I was just reading the news today in Tanzania, in Hanang. You know Hanang. There's a landslide in the mountain where the pastoralists have been removed some 20, 30 years ago, which has been so much destroyed by the people that are doing logging on the mountain. As a result, we have a landslide. We lost, yesterday, we lost 49 people. That is the people that have been identified in pastoralist area. So how do we do to ensure that we go back to the nature and learn from them? Why was that not happening long time ago, and why is it happening now? And very little finance is given to them, even after losing, because the indigenous people have sacrificed a lot by giving up their land for conservation, for example, by giving up their land for other investment, for businesses. But now, how are they getting compensated? What we find now is the impact of the actions that the governments are doing: eviction, violating rights, beatings, and of course, impoverishment of the pastoralist community. And I think it is not only happening in my country, but it is happening all over in the world, where pastoralists are really a very big population that is highly affected by climate change, but also by intervention, by mitigation actions that are taking place in the area. I think it looks like you want to tell me, keep quiet. Let me just stop for the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, Porokwa. I mean, this is really, I feel very sad to hear about the landslides because they are not the best. I'm your neighbor, and always that brings a lot of issues. And that's why the reason why ILC, the International Land Coalition, really wants to make sure that we work together to have indigenous people also participate a lot in restoration. But also we want to know, it's very good you brought those issues up, because it's also something that we need to lobby with the governments. They, people are displaced, nobody take care of that land. It's left like that. One of the other important things that you have really mentioned is the way the wildlife follows indigenous people. And that's very clear, even for us. If you look at Serengeti and Masai Mara, the animals have their own systems. They have their own knowledge, and they know when to move to the other region and to come. And they know where the indigenous people are. They move together like this without a problem. And they know how to, to live in harmony together. So I think those are key issues, and those recommendations, we hope we can be able to carry them forward. Now, let's go to the third person. I see, I want to give to Hanie to see whether you are set up already, and then he will come back later. Pablo will come later. And Hanie Morgan is a researcher and legal counsel, the university lecturer in Iran. She comes from Iran. She has participated, and she has quite a lot of experience in different programs at the national level, at the international level, and at the local level also. She also participates in different other activities on biodiversity, on issues of land degradation, and so on. She is also a member of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, so it's also a good opportunity to have her here. And Hanie, I think it will be good if you start your presentation, and you are welcome. And you have 7 minutes.
Sure, maybe less. Hello, everyone. Let me introduce myself in another way. Actually, politically and geographically, I am from Asia, but naturally and philosophically, I am, I am an indigenous dust in whole universe. So, as an indigenous dust, I want to talk with you about our observation about pastoralism and their role in ecosystem restoration. Before I start, I just want to follow up what mentioned by my brother. We are witnessing in this scope that they are talking about loss and damages, but some of the damages we cannot restore that damages. For example, in some part of my country, we lost so many rangelands, and we lost it forever. And scientifically, we cannot restore that rangelands and that lands again. So when it comes to climate change and action for climate change, the first step is to prevent this loss and damages, not thinking after that how we are going to restore them and get them back. Now I want to just say some results of our studies in Senesta, which is related to pastoralism. As with other mobile ecosystem-based livelihoods practices by indigenous peoples, mobility in pastoralism takes into account seasonal changes, diversity of landscapes and ecologies, different form of pastoral lands, availability of water and the knowledge of pastoralists and etc. to support resilience, sustainable food and livelihood systems. Mobility is used by pastoralists to manage grazing pressure and integrity of rangelands, and is the most important strategy used by pastoralists in Iran to survive and thrive in marginal landscapes such as desert, arid, and semi-arid areas, because my country is located in arid and semi-arid areas. It allows pastoralists to adapt to variable weather conditions and general food, livelihoods, and incomes in a constrained rangeland ecosystem. Mobility in my country can be of two types, namely broad-scale mobility, which involved changing camp location from one site to another, and it could be vertical or horizontal, and fine-scale daily movement within 1 day's range from camp of a fixed settlement. According to broad-scale movement features, subsistence livestock herding can be classified as nomadism, transhuman, and sedentary pastoralism. Now, just I want to share with you one of the studies that we had for ecosystem and restoration by mobility and pastoralism. There is an old woman. She exists in one area in our country, and they are goat herders. When they are going to move from one part to another part, they have a bag, a fabric bag, in the neck of the front goat, and it has so many holes in it. They put so many seeds, local seeds, in it, and when the front goat move in front, then these seeds pour in the land. So the other goats and sheep who are following the front goat, they step on that seeds, and when they come back again, they still have their food in the way. So it is somehow their traditional knowledge. We don't recognize it as science, but if we don't recognize it as a science, then what is it? But we are going to keep and document these specific knowledge and science, which is helping us to restore our lands and to combat whatever we are facing. Thank you very much.
So that's very interesting, looking at that knowledge. They know that when they move on and the others step on, they will be able to regenerate. And that's the same thing that Iporokwa was saying. Edward was saying about the pastoralism system, whereby they have to move from one place, they go graze there. They know it's time to move away from that land, but already it's fertilized already. And so it's easy to regenerate very quickly. So it's all issue of traditional knowledge, which is very crucial. And as you say, this is the reason why in other processes like biodiversity, traditional knowledge is being put there as one of the sciences. And we have to really make sure that we carry it all along when we are doing all this other kind of work. So thank you very much for that. Pablo, let's go to Latin America. And we really thank the young lady there who has volunteered to interpret. We appreciate your work there. So Pablo,
Yes.
I think you
Okay.
can go ahead.
Can I
and-
stand up? Yes, no?
Yes. And he's the executive secretary of the Redes Chaco, and a multi-stakeholders platform of General Chaco region. And I think he's also been doing quite a lot of good work and issues of sustainable development, sustainable livelihood and livestock. So we look forward to hear what you tell us from
Okay.
that end. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Muchas gracias, Tamara, to translate for our colleagues from Latin America. And thank you, muchas gracias. Good morning. Buenos días. Well, I want to, if I have to mention about the challenge or problem of Latin American pastoralists, I have to mention the same things in Asia, in Africa. I can use too much time on this. So I want to, can you help me? Yeah, well, what is Redes Chaco? It's a network of networks. And it means that we build in the diversity of women, youth, indigenous people, peasants, global governments to look for the region, the Chaco. What is the Chaco? Is it food? No. Please, the next. Yes, okay. This doesn't work. This is the Chaco in South America, in the heart of South America, in the center, involving Argentina, Paraguay, and Bolivia, and a very little piece of Brazil, but the other three countries is very important. It is the second largest forest after Amazonia. All people know Amazonia, but Chaco, nobody. So it's very important for us that today you know about the Chaco. And here it is, and have a very, very great biodiversity and a great diversity of people, indigenous people, more than 20 nations, peasants, immigrants of all around the world, living together. And in the Chaco, we work together for the Chaco. But a lot of people keeping livestock are pastoralists. No, perhaps some people know what is pastoralism. Well, for us, family who breed livestock with based on mobility. So the animals have to move, looking for food, for water. So that's our. This is some images of our region. In our country, pastoralists are undervalued. Absolutely, nobody or policymakers don't value the contribution of to food security and wealth in our country. We carry up a study carried in 2019 with Pastoralists Northern Hub, with IFAD, and a collaboration of CIRAD and our organizations. It's a self-revelation. And it showed that the production of our pastoralists in Argentina is more than $3 million each year. That is important. It's important. So, but as was mentioned, it doesn't appear in in the books, on the journalists, on the TV, on the information of the country. Okay. And what is the question today? Is that we want to remark that ensuring ownership of or tenure, security in land tenure is crucial, is very important to our families. But it had to be done properly. If the recognition is made as a mainstream way where land is parceled in individual could pass this. This is a family in the flood of the Rio Pilcomayo, and as they cannot move their animals to the highlands, they have to feed there, and a lot of animals died there, and the cost for this family. The other families move their animals, and there is no problem. Each year, the river grow, flood, and people move the animal and then return, as was mentioned in different experiences here. When policies are implemented in dialogue, for us it's very important to take into account dialogue among policymakers and pastoralists and families. So then the activities to restore degraded areas are promoted or incentivized. And look at this, or look at this. This is Sonia Olivera. What her family thought about this land? This is dead land. Land dead. We cannot live here. But after the property recognition, they began to walk, to move animals, to have some inversions. And this is Argentino Palacios, is her husband. And the place changed, no? It's different. So that's very important. What happened? This landscape probably was, in Spanish we say, peladares, like my head. Nothing. No? Yes, that's it. But after grazing, management, and some inversion, this is a fence, but not with steel, with shrubs. It's made by the family to control the access or not for the animals. And this is trees and grass are silvopastoral systems. So this kind of system is very important in our Chaco. It's very important. And this one, and I like to see this one. At the left side, you see the previous situation of the land, the dead land. And then these families are happy because they restore and perhaps each area have the personal or familiar property, because laws in Argentina don't recognize the communitary property. But they have arrangements among them to move the animals, to share the grass, the water, and move animals in an arrangement among them. It's arrangement that came from long time, but now with the security of the land, this arrangement works better. So that's my presentation and some conclusions. Well, first of all, remember, pastoralists have to be taken in account for policymakers, for international cooperation. Hey, here, international cooperation, here. And our society, because sometimes our own families or cities do not recognize the importance of this production of food, of animal protein, where nobody do, where other things can be there, as you mentioned and you mentioned. We are working in organizations. WAMIP is a global alliance, but you see, there are a lot of organizations. There's another question very important, to be organized. It doesn't matter if it's regional, international, or local, but we have to fight together. It's the way. Land tenure, as I mentioned, is crucial to rural development, but especially for mobile families, pastoralists, it had to be done looking in our livelihood strategy. And you have to be sure that as ensuring land tenure, land property recognition, we're going to have this beautiful word, triple impact, social, environment, and economic impact is very important. And we have to remark that we have 2 years that in United Nations recognize as international years. Next year, 2024, the International Year of Camelids. Bolivia, where Mariela comes, promote this, and Arabian countries are promoting, and next year we have the International Year of Camelids. And in 2026, we have the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists. Mongolia promote this, and a lot of countries support this. So it could be great opportunities to improve our visibility, recognition, but not as a problem, but as part of the solution. So thank you, and I want to mention great thanks to International Land Coalition and Meridian Institute to give us the opportunity to stay here, to be visible, to talk. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pablo. Looking at what you presented, you are all the way from Argentina with all the waters between us, but it's just almost similar to what Africa is. And some of the participants here can already testify how much they have tried to regenerate some land, and what we have been doing, especially in my own organization and other grassroots people, to try and really restore the land, because that's the only way. But you see, you brought up the issue again, just like Porok was saying, that governments, policymakers do not recognize the really land and land tenure issues, because communities live together, the communal land, but they don't see as if it's something viable. They will always say this is a wasteland, there is nobody there. But they don't know that that particular land is owned by a community. Thank you very much again, and I hope this you can open up as a network to be able to have quite a number of issues, people coordinating and communicating together. Now, let me give to, before I open to the floor, first of all, let me give to Joanna. Johanna is an ILC climate and nature led in the organization, and as well as a focal point for Indigenous People Organization. She has a PhD in law and brings over 20 years experience of interface between human rights and environment. And I've known Joanna for quite some years, working in different spheres. And she's also got a lot of experience working with the different communities on issues of human rights and so on. So please go ahead, Joanna.
Thank you. I'm going to be very brief so that we have more time to questions. I work for the international, I'm sorry, my voice is also disappearing, but I'm working for the International Land Coalition. We are a network of 300, slightly more than 300 organizations, probably the largest and most diverse coalition in the world working on land rights, with a mission to really give the power back to people who live on the land and from the land to control the land. Together, as I just said, 100 of the members that we have, a little more, are people's organizations. We refer to people's organizations. These are organizations who are based from the constituencies who directly live on the land. The work on restoration is really inspired by the experiences from our indigenous peoples members. There's about 33 of them all over the world, as well as our pastoralist members, which I have a bit more than 20. And then we have also 3 regional platforms that work on ecosystem restoration, as well as locally managed ecosystem, and who are like Coluipa is managing the one in Asia. There's work in Latin America and Africa. And so we're trying to bring this together in our engagement on restoration. The reason we got engaged in restoration is because we know from our members that a lot of work on restoration by a community-based organization is happening, but that is rarely reflected when we talk about restoration in the sort of on the global level, where even in spite of the experiences and the sort of at least the global paradigm shift we see in the conservation space with a greater recognition of community-based conservation initiatives, we don't really see that yet in the restoration space. And so our three sort of main inspirations here is first, what we've been saying before, the recognition of indigenous peoples and local community knowledge in restoration, and that they're critical allies in really addressing restoration challenges, which has been also recognized by IPBES and others. But then also to make that link between tenure, traditional knowledge, and restoration. The latest conversations on Article 8J under the Convention on Biological Diversities have as one of the indicators land for the traditional knowledge protection. And I think that link is really critical. And then the third is that we want to avoid the mistakes that we've seen from the conservation sector, where large-scale restoration initiatives don't recognize community land and undermine communities through large-scale restoration planning. And so we're working with the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration. The UN Decade's aim is to prevent, halt, and reverse ecosystem degradation, land degradation by 2030. We're honored to work closely with Lucy and Hanya, who are both members of the board of the UN Decade for Ecosystem Restoration, and really focus on one particular sub-element of the action plan, which is focusing on tenure security, as well as the recognition of indigenous peoples and local communities as stewards of ecosystem restoration. The work is mostly on, at this point, and engaging in strategic advocacy, bringing the experiences of our members into, and others into the CBD, UNCCD, and other spaces. We have data platforms that we engage with in the space. Particularly, we have a newly sort of revitalized platform on tenure security called Landmark that we're bringing into the space. We're engaging with our regional platforms, but then also working with the UN Decade to really try to scale that work, bring visibility to the members working on restoration and other organizations, and engage in more strategic visibility and outreach work, potentially also with larger flagship initiatives that really bring and sort of counter what we see, these global restoration flagship, and really bring up more community-based experiences in the space. We'd love to work with you. Please be in touch, contact us. And now I'm giving back to Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne, and thank you for bringing that. Again, is the issue of partnership is very, very crucial, because partnership, we always, help each other and try to see how much we can be able to connect the dots and then be able to advance and restore our lands, and also follow up and try to implement many of these, I don't know what to call them, but many of these declarations that come from everywhere: Paris Agreement, outcomes of Glasgow, Sharm el-Sheikh, and also the Kunming biodiversity, global biodiversity framework. And now we are here in Dubai. So here we are, and I want to open it up for questions and share your thoughts, and also additional information that you may give us. You heard very well that we have these very rich recommendations which are going to be shared. And those recommendations are very important, because we know that later on we'll find it all in the Land Coalition webpage, but very good and important that we can be able to share ourselves with. So here, who would like to be the first to go? Yes, who would like to be the first? A brave person to start? Good, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll be brave. My name is Rebecca Iwerks, and I'm with Namati in the Grassroots Justice Network. And many of our network members, some of whom are pastoralists, have found that themselves in the middle of carbon markets, someone trying to make money off of their traditional practices. And I'm curious how that has been for you and how you have responded to that situation.
That's a very nice question. And Namati, thank you very much. There is a gentleman there. So you can pick them up, the questions, and then I'll give you,
Yeah, thank you. My name is Stephen Moya from Uganda. I work with the Agro-Resilience Advisory. I participate in the negotiations here. And I'm particularly interested because in Uganda I've worked with the colleagues in COPASCO, and these are one of the pastoral organizations that we have. One of the things that I had mentioned is that the discussions here are ignoring pastoralism. And I think the question I have is related to that. One is that in some cases, when it comes to livestock, there is a challenge of methane, which is being projected as a big problem. When we look at management of rangelands, fire is often used as a tool, and there is a lot of associated emissions. These are some of the areas that I see may be working against our process in this case. But at the same time, we think that the pastoralists are some of the most vulnerable people impacted by droughts, floods, and as your presentations have also highlighted. The question is, what are those elements that you think we can build on strongly to make a case for pastoralism, make a case for rangelands, that you think we can help put into the negotiations that can give more space for pastoralism and rangelands? Because this is important, that your advocacy can actually meet that direction. The second element that I wanted to also emphasize is the land tenure, which many of you talked about. And I think the point here is governments are sort of challenged on how to manage large parcels of land in a manner that allows communities, pastoralists to move freely. And there's a lot of vulnerability on the side of pastoralism, where they tend to lose land from land grabbers. They look at the land as being idle, yet it is not idle. And I just want to know what kind of policy mechanism do you think can really strengthen the land tenure in that case? And maybe I have seen that in some countries there are pastoral codes that have been put in place. There are some policies on pastoralism, but the question of protection of land, what are those specific interventions that you think are important to protect communal land that is at risk in this case? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think those are very, very important questions. And after they have answered, I'll also lift my hat out from being a facilitator and answer some of your questions. Yeah. Do we have... Yes, it's gone now. Do we have any other question from the floor? Yes, Vivian.
My name is Vivian Kiprotich from Indigenous Women Biodiversity Network. My question is, we all know that invasive species is one of the major threats of ecosystem restorations. And we understand that rangelands are more prone to invasive species. So what initiatives or actions are you taking to control them in a sustainable way? Thank you.
Wow. Questions come from very different corners. That's a very interesting one. So let me give to the floor now to the panelists to answer. Who is to start? Yeah, Porokwa.
Maybe I cannot answer all of them, but I can just contribute to the answers, then my colleagues will deal with it also. I think the first issue that was mentioned was the issue of the carbon market. As we speak, it is a global issue, and there's a lot of, we have a lot of visitors in our areas now. including in my village, coming for some kind of partnership with a local community on carbon market. And of course, a lot of support by the governments. And we have also seen our governments signing agreements or MOUs with different companies on carbon market. And that on the face of it seems to be very good deals. Like Tanzania, just between July and October, have earmarked about $20 billion agreement with different companies on carbon market. But this is bringing a worry, because for the pastoralist, all these initiatives have been a pain. The conservation, establishment of national parks and all that have been a very big pain to the pastoralist. So it is something that they have to take with very serious caution. And of course, there are a lot of policies that are taking place in our own respective countries affecting pastoralists, because there is an upgrade of existing forest in the pastoralist land, making them nature forests, which means access to it become even more difficult for the pastoralists. So it is something that need to be taken very seriously to ensure that it does not affect the land tenure, further the land tenure of the pastoralists and other land users. So the carbon market could be a good thing for the pastoralists, but can also be an opportunity for the loss of land by pastoralists. But of course, it is also give an opportunity to those people that are polluting the air to continue doing it at our own expense, because it might come with the restriction that you cannot do this and this and this so that you get the money. It's like we are losing our potential to produce or to economically empower ourselves by giving somebody a potential to economically benefit at our own expense. So I think it is something that have to be taken in caution, and my colleagues will just add to that. But the other issue you mentioned, very, very important, is the way of the argument that the pastoralists are also part of the emitters. And even the cow dung, whatever, all this, I'm not a scientist, but I have heard of these arguments. It is something that require to balance between the role of pastoralists in emission and their role in conservation, which I think is something that ILC and other partners need to look at, and which I believe we are more beneficial to the biodiversity than the impact that we are making negatively on the ground. And you mentioned, and I think my colleagues will also talk about it, elements that can make a good case for us. I think some of our presentation has already earmarked some of the elements that will make our case more relevant to the negotiations that is taking place, including how much we contribute to the biodiversity, but also how much we are important to the conservation, and how much we are linked, our ecosystem is linked with improvement of other ecosystem, even if we don't live in those areas. So all that interlinkage is very important to recognize, and our contribution in that. And lastly, quickly, which is very important also, the issue of tenure, how to do it. We have very practical examples in Tanzania on the pastoralist. Because as I said in my very early presentation, all our land laws are built in the colonial mentality of individualization, titling, and registration, which is affecting our governments. They still try to do like how the colonial masters have been doing, without recognizing how we were doing before that. But in some of the countries, we have what they call communal land certificates. Because we have also been through our own government colonial system, established administrative patches of land. In Tanzania, we call village, district, county, whatever, all these things we have. Forgetting our own mobility, which did not take into account the cross-border that we have. But for Tanzania, we have what they call communal land certificates between more than one villages. And we have even for communities, the hunter-gatherers, the Hazabe. We have the Hazabe land, which has a certificate, and they can use it for all their users without taking regards to the administrative villages, where different administrative villages can get in agreement in allocating a place that cut across those areas and get a certificate for that, and providing land use planning that take into account the livelihood of pastoralists. I think that is possible if we are really determined to recognize our existence, our history, and the livelihood that we are living in.
Yes, only two ideas. First of all, carbon market has to transit a long way to be accessible to pastoralists or small farmers or peasants or indigenous peoples. But a possibility or an action could be that organizations like International Land Coalition or IFAD, for example, could access easily to those funds, and then we make it easy to arrive. No, I don't at ILC, but IFAD is our friend. We can, when is the vice president? Well, idea is some organization international could access of this kind of green funds and put it easily in our hands. About how to be present in different. We have opportunities. We are pastoralists are part of the farmer forums of IFAD. We are part of different organizations in FIO. We have the Pastoral Knowledge Hub. We have a lot of organizations. Perhaps we have to work. Don't hear too much. In more collaboration and less egos, to work more together, because we have access in different forums, and we have to work to communicate. Perhaps sometimes we need some people helping, some money to have meetings, to exchange information, but we have to do it, and we have some opportunities, and we have to explore more of them with the recognition of our countries, our governments, to hear us, and to work with the academia and different kind of organizations that give some support of our arguments. Something as this work we did in Argentina, but Natasha, we were part of the group of pastoralists Knowledge Hub. Is what doing in Chad and also in Mongolia, and the numbers are very, very exciting. So that's my point.
Thank you very much. I think one of the points that I would like to add is that for Kenya, for example, there have been the registration of the community land taking stock. And I think Namati, Kenya, is also partnership with that, with one of the organizations that, one of the key organization leading that, the director is also around. And they've been documenting and ensuring that the community land rights, the community land is registered, plus taking data on the population, on the land, measuring the lands and so on, just to make sure that there is data to be able to go ahead and build case studies, as you say very well, as what Tanzania, we've seen a lot of damages of the land, even sacred places for indigenous people being invaded and so on. So I'll give you maybe about 3 minutes so that I can be able to give Ifadu is here to be able to talk to us a little, because there are some few points they mentioned here. So Hanie, 2 minutes.
Just one sentence about what you mentioned about the gas emission. Actually, there are so many studies related to the gas emission of pastoralism that shows it is very lower than the other kind of animal herding, for example, in mass and industrial animal herding. And we should compare actually the gas emission and how it is useful. I already mentioned about pastoralism and how it is restoring our lands. Yes.
Thank you. Do you have, Kulipa, do you have some 1 minute that you want to add?
Thank you. I think it's enough from my partners. Just I would like to say we have different visions, we have different tools, we have different forces. We need to unite our efforts. We need to unite our skills, our knowledge in face of our cataclysms and global challenge. And I think we need to unite our forces with academic area, with traditional knowledge. And I think we have enough platforms such as ILC Asia and others, IFAD, and others international organizations. I think we need to be more alive in our questions. And I think we need to not just talk. We need to be actively. We need to. We are realizing, and we don't have time to talking to go negotiations. We need to be actively. We need to active. You need to be in one union in face of our surviving of our planet.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So you are emphasizing on action, not just talk. And I think also to add to what you have mentioned and what the rest have mentioned, I think there are quite a lot of studies that have been done on land and land tenure. The AU, the African Union, and with support from FAO, IFAD, and others have really done a lot of studies. They are all lying somewhere, getting dust. Nobody is taking, and I think it's the same in Latin America and other places, and even Iran, as she's talked about the methane and so on. The studies have been done, but it's always a problem of, trying to look at those studies and comparing them and having some implementation when it comes to policy. And I think there was a question which was asked about invasive species in rangelands. And we know that those invasive species are mainly they come along because of the livestock movement. And also the birds, not only livestock, but different animals and different species also bring and contribute to that. And not much studies have been done because there are quite a lot of invasive species in those areas. But we need, I think, one of the key issues is to have studies done on that. And we have just a few minutes to go on, and I would like to invite Dr. Joe, let me get the name very right, and I hope Dr. Joe Puri. She is one of the vice presidents of IFAD, Strategy and Knowledge Department, through which she leads the organization strategy work in key areas, targeting agriculture, climate, gender, nutrition, youth, and social inclusion. So she's just perfectly in the right place and perfectly going to bring some of the issues that are there. And I'm sure she was also taking quite a lot of notes to hear your questions and to use some of the issues that have come along. Dr. Joe, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Such a privilege for me to be here. I don't want to displace, but perhaps I'll stand up. But I don't want to displace the panel. Thank you very much. I did actually get to hear a lot of the responses, and I also got to hear a little bit of the presentations and also the questions from the audience. And thank you very much, Chair, for having me. I'm really privileged to be here. I'm the co-chair, one of the two co-chairs of the International Land Coalition. And one of the key things that obviously we predicate our work on is ensuring land rights. And that's something that, being hosted by IFAD is one of the key things that we want to ensure, that land rights and land tenure becomes a really key part of the focus that we have on rural development across the world. The discussion here is, of course, about rangelands and pastoralists. And one of the questions that also came up was the extent to which we can use all of these VVIPs arriving by private helicopters. The extent to which we can see livestock and rangelands as an opportunity rather than a challenge. Now, you all know that there has been a methane pledge that countries and organizations have committed themselves to, and methane has a 50 times greater greenhouse gas potential compared to carbon dioxide. So one of the key opportunities that we have in this space is to really reduce the amount of methane that is produced so that we can reduce the greenhouse gas effect that we are witnessing today so that we can meet the 1.5 degree pledge. Now, some of the things that we are doing in this context within IFAD and in partnership with ILC, but also a lot of our other partners, is recognizing that rangeland management, that pastoralists, working with pastoralists can be a very key part of our own commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, providing benefit sharing mechanisms to people who have community-based land tenure, and other ones that are most investing really in resilience as well as in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and especially methane. We do that because of our focus on ensuring that there is market access, that there is financial access that is provided to a lot of communities. But within rangeland management and pastoralism, we've got projects, for example, in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan that are looking at livestock feed that can truly reduce enteric fermentation, that in turn leads to a reduction in the overall amount of methane. We are also looking at managing rangelands and rangeland rotation so that you can still keep herd sizes the same, not increasing them, but increasing the quality and the quantity of meat and dairy products that are produced as a consequence of practices. And we are also looking at how, with the teams on the ground, we can manage manure and provide changes in livestock feed so that some of these results can be brought about. In other investments that we are doing in Kenya, in Uganda, in Rwanda, we are doing national projects that are really focused on working very closely with dairy developers and aggregators that can help to reduce the amount of the herd sizes while still increasing the overall dairy-related output so that income can be assured to a lot of the pastoralists that are in this region. We are also working in Tanzania, actually all 4 countries, and we've got a regional as well as countrywide investments that we are looking at. The interesting thing for me, now wearing my IFAD hat, which is the International Fund for Agricultural Development, is that 15% of our own projects focus on livestock. This is not commensurate with the overall contribution that livestock makes to GDP, which is approximately 20 to 40%, but we are going to get there. But thank you so much. I really appreciated a lot of your comments, and I'm going to be looking forward to hopefully discussing this far more with you. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. And let's clap for them and also clap for ourselves, as we have to leave now. The other side event is starting, but I want to thank them very much again and thank everyone for all that. Let's just take a quick photo for the panelists, and then we can move on to allow others to get in. Thank you.